Hello and welcome. I'm Perry Solomon, General Manager for Brands with WoodWing USA, and today I'm pleased to be joined by Owen Greenwell, Content Operations Director at Medium Rare. Today's webinar is called Content Orchestration, Optimizing the Creative Workflow. As mentioned, I will be joined by Owen from Medium Rare. Today, in our webinar, first I'm going to share a brief introduction to WoodWing. I'm going to define content orchestration and what it means for agencies. And then Owen will join and we'll have a discussion. He'll introduce Medium Rare. We'll talk about some of the challenges he faces in his business and how content orchestration has delivered solutions for the work that they do for their clients. And importantly, Owen will share insights on how they are optimizing their content workflow to deliver better work for their clients. WoodWing provides the technology for leading brands, agencies, and publishers to tell their stories. Across our global footprint, WoodWing works with over 2,000 customers, media brands, corporate marketers, agencies, and non-governmental organizations. So that means that on any given day, over 50,000 individuals are creating and managing content using WoodWing technology. And we do that in over 100 countries where we have customers and partners around the world developing content in many different languages for many different markets. Some of those customers include names you know, like BuzzFeed, the United Nations, Steve Madden, Coca-Cola, and others. And as we said, at the heart of content orchestration is people and tools working seamlessly together to plan, create, manage, and distribute content. We do that through two primary solutions: WoodWing Assets, our digital asset management solution, and WoodWing Studio, our multi-channel content creation platform. Together, these solutions sit at the heart of the content orchestration process and connect seamlessly with all of the tools that creatives use on a daily basis. With content orchestration, teams can take a content-first approach to create channel-neutral stories, managing workflows and approval processes, and delivering outputs in print, online, and apps. Content orchestration is at the heart of teams that are internal and external, as we'll talk about, and sits in between all of the internal data sources and all of the external channels where you want that content to go. So I'm pleased to be joined today by Owen Greenwell from Medium Rare. Hello, Owen.
Hi, Perry. How are you?
Good, good. It's great to talk with you again.
And you.
So I've had the pleasure of getting to know you and your colleagues at Medium Rare. But for those of you who are new to the name, please tell us first about you and then about Medium Rare.
Okay, well, I'm the Content Operations Director at Medium Rare. My role is to oversee how content is produced, the mechanics behind the scenes of how that is done, and all the software systems and the processes and workflows involved. And that's not just inside the organization, also when we interact with our clients and other third parties, various automations and integrations with external systems as well. And I've been doing this for heading on 20 odd years in various capacities in the advertising and print kind of industries. So Medium Rare is a dedicated agency, content agency, and we specialize in helping brands tell their stories, is the way that we describe it. So we're a full service agency, full service operation. We do print, online, social, videos. We'll get into some more of that a bit later on. And we look to do all of those in a coherent way for a client. So not just individual projects here and there, actually building a system whereby your message and brand can be properly represented. And there's a lot of moving parts in getting that all going. And additionally, we help, it's not just making the content, it's also doing it in a way that gets the client's message across, and also in some cases the client makes money directly from those assets or that content. And we partner with some of Australia and New Zealand's most iconic brands. So our international audience will be familiar with Qantas, but also in Australia we've got Coles, one of the biggest supermarkets, David Jones, Bunnings, Officeworks, and they're all giant brand names in Australia and New Zealand. On the next slide, yes. So I mentioned we do all sorts of content. So Medium Rare started off with print magazines, is the bread and butter of the business, and catalogs. But that's expanded, and we do digital channels, and that includes websites, social channels. We manage some of our clients' YouTube channels. All the social networks. Video, both long form and short form. So we've done simple, I shouldn't say simple, but cooking videos for our supermarket clients, travel for Qantas, and they're varied from 30-second Instagram bites through to 5-10 minute, and I think in some cases even longer, kind of internal communication and more ad based. And we have a new division called Storyation, which has come on board, and they are long form video is one of their strong suits. And the newest addition is podcasts. So we now have 3 or 4, I think, podcasts for our clients that are underway. And to do all of that, we use WoodWing's tools. They are the center of our content operation. We've been a WoodWing client since 2015. In fact, since the business started, we started with WoodWing right from the get-go. Myself and other members of the team had used the tools in other organizations. And another key part is for instance, the Assets API, which is the center of our integrations and delivery kind of automations, some of which we've developed in-house, some of which we've got other people to do, and that allows kind of the maximum flexibility, and the WoodWing tools allow us to do that.
And I know you've been nice enough to share, picture tells 1,000 words, maybe more, just some of the examples of the work that you do for some of your clients.
That's right. So we've got a few magazine covers there. Acuity, which is the Accountants Association company director, the little phone icons of some of our podcasts. We've got the Coles website there. For instance, Coles magazine, which isn't shown on there, that's actually the largest distributed magazine in Australia because it's free at the supermarkets. So the print run's actually, I think, the largest in Australia. So that's just a small example. We've done over the course of the last 5 years hundreds of print issues through the WoodWing systems, and managed all these additional channels as well.
Nice. So with all of that work and all of that content that's being created for all of these different platforms, content orchestration must be a big part of being able to support that and do all of that work. When you think about content orchestration, what does it mean for you?
Well, what it means is it's the time to do the important creative work. So traditionally, a lot of time has been spent in kind of the admin and the management of content. And with content orchestration, it means you remove the friction between staff and clients to find things, get things done. And the WoodWing tools allow that. And that's what it means to us, is it's almost when you don't see it is when it's working, because you go in to do your job and the assets are where you want them to be, and sending them to the next place or the next person is a simple process. So that's what content orchestration means to us.
I wonder if we could spend a little time sort of understanding and digging a little bit deeper, sort of maybe beginning with sort of who are involved. Maybe you could share, what does a typical client engagement team look like, and which roles and individuals tend to get involved in these different content workflows.
Okay. Well, Medium Rare itself, we're heading back towards 200 staff. Like many places, the pandemic took a bit of a hit, but on the creative side, that's involved is everything from you've got print designers, writers, sub-editors, video editors, magazine editors. Then we have freelancers, where we've got photographers, videographers, additional designers, writers. So there's a whole host of creative kind of people there involved in every aspect. And there's a lot of moving parts. And also you throw in client management, sales management, and then the clients themselves. There's a lot of people involved in the workflow at various steps, ranging from content plans at the very beginning to what we're going to do, through actually creating the content, reviewing it, approving it, making those final, whether it's sending PDFs to the printer or that final render of a video, and then the delivery, which can take multiple forms. So a print magazine doesn't just go to the printer. We make an emag. The text content goes to the website. So there's all of these kind of things, which, from the outside is, we just make a magazine, but there's so many moving parts to that. And, we've had project management consultants and people come in and be quite surprised about how much work goes on and how many things need to happen simultaneously in that kind of creative workflow to get these things to happen. And really everyone in that process needs to find the assets they need and see the work in progress, and they need to do it in a timely fashion. Every time you can't find something, or you've got to send an email, or you've got to ask somebody, that's time wasted. And that it's a death of a thousand cuts. It adds up and adds up and adds up. So by having all those different people and all those different skill sets and different levels of technical proficiency as well. So, yes, the people doing the social channels might be super on the ball with the technical stuff, but somebody who's been doing print design for 30 years, maybe not quite so much. Bit of a generalization, but you have to be able to manage all of those different skill levels in the process.
And as you described, just sort of all of those opportunities for inefficiency to creep into the process and to have real time and financial and quality impact on the work that you do. How did you go about identifying some of those inefficiencies in those workflows?
I mean, there's a few things, just beyond asking people, but people have different ideas about what's efficient and what's inefficient. But there's a few key giveaways: excessive copying and pasting, lots of Google Sheets or Excel sheets managing many processes, lots of files on the desktop, and people sending things by Dropbox and this type of thing just indicates that maybe this isn't the optimum workflow. And where are bottlenecks, where information is unclear or status is unclear. So you have people not necessarily sitting around waiting, but the delays, because they say, oh, I don't know where that is, or I don't know where they're up to with that. So they're all telltales. We can say, well, let's pick that apart. Let's work out why that's happening and what can we do to remedy that.
And I guess if you, as you think about ways to improve it, did you also begin to think about sort of, maybe what are the underlying causes of some of those inefficiencies in terms of why people were working the way that they were working?
Exactly. And there's a mix of, there's the technology, there's the personality, there's the type of work, the type of client. So all those things add up. So there's no one easy answer. And you really do have to drill into the details to get that. You can't just glance at it and draw a reasonable conclusion.
Right. So Owen, as you were looking at the way that you were working, what did you identify as the main causes of that workflow inefficiency?
Well, there's a couple of things we found. First of all, is history. Things that you get the situation where we've always done it this way, which works. And that's the thing. When you look at these systems, the work's still getting done. Like the print magazine still gets out on time, the video still gets made, but it's there's all those historical reasons, and you need to periodically reassess them. No system is going to be perfect forever. The other one we found was ad hoc solutions, which become permanent. So we need to solve this problem now. How can we do it today, this week? And then nobody ever stops to think, well, there's probably a better way to do that. That ad hoc solution just becomes law and becomes part of the way things are done. And the other one is we get a new situation or a new platform or a new type of work comes in, and whatever's familiar, the familiar workflow gets applied to that, and it may not fit. So the classic example is you've got the print workflows, and then the web came along. Even that's ancient history now. Everyone tried to apply the print paradigms to creating content on the web, and that didn't work. And now you go to Instagram. What you used to do a blog doesn't work with Instagram, or even TikTok, or any of these other kind of things, which I struggle to understand as an official old person now. So you need to be constantly reassessing where those inefficiencies are and how you can better use those tools.
Right. Which then, of course, then leads to the types of questions around how do you optimize for the necessary workflows and understanding their differences. What did you see as sort of the main challenges in looking for solutions to help to optimize the workflows?
I mean, ultimately, it comes down to you really have to do the work. You have to map the workflows. You have to draw the flow charts. You have to drill down into exactly what happens now, what should happen, and map out those scenarios, because you have to understand what's going on before you can make these decisions. And you can't farm it out to consultants either. Really, it has to be done by a team who works in the business, and you have to carve out that time, both for a team to do it, like someone like myself and the people I work with, and also the staff within the organization have to take the time to invest in a workflow. You have to find the right tools for the job, and there is no one size fits all kind of tool that you can just say, right, we're going to buy this piece of software. As brilliant as Studio and Assets are, you can't just buy them and tomorrow you've got a perfect workflow. That's not how it works. So you need to do the work, map everything out, and you need buy-in across the board. So especially from management. So it does have to be from top down. So it's very hard for somebody at the lower rungs of the organizational ladder to implement something like this. You have to have that clear from the top down definitions of what the business is trying to achieve and why they're trying to implement it. And that is the biggest benefit to an implementation, is for optimizing the workflow, is a clear explanation of the benefits. Why are we doing this? I mean, the reason a lot of these things fail, and you talk to any number of organizations, is nobody really knew why they were doing it. There's some vague notion of cost cutting or efficiency as a word, but unless you've got very specific details, we're going to make your life better by, you can find things faster, you can move things from A to B to C to D without having to touch it or click a status, and this happens. Once you're very specific and clear, optimizing the workflow and implementing it become much easier and more successful.
Terrific. Well, you mentioned the word specific, so if you don't mind, let's get specific.
Okay.
Would love it if you could kind of walk us through an example of how the process has changed and how you were able to combine both what the technologies that you've chosen could enable, but importantly, how the teams were using them to be able to improve workflows and to be able to optimize how your team works.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to pick one, and we've got many of these. So, for example, for photographers and videographers, now some of these are internal people, some of these are external. So we have a project management tool, and we have a link using the APIs between our project management tool and WoodWing's assets and studio system. So we have initially projects and tasks where the job is spec'd and laid out as to what's going to happen. At some point, we change status of that task. And because we have those API links, and we've defined clearly in the project management system what's meant to happen, in assets, we get the folders and collections in the correct structure with the right naming conventions, gets pre-built. So traditionally, that would have been somebody would have manually had to do that. That's pre-built. Then, because assets has the notion of share links, it creates a share link for us and adds that to the project in the project management system. So now when we commission or share out that task, we get that share link. So it's a URL, and the photographer, be it internal or external, can click that URL, takes them straight to the correct folder or collection in the asset management system where we're expecting those assets to arrive. The person can drop all the assets, upload it directly into the system, add any metadata, change the status. That status is reflected back in our project management system. And then all the way along this, any of those status changes and updates also can set off various notifications and things like that. So we went from a system whereby previously you'd have to send an email and then you get a Dropbox link back, or have to check an FTP, and then you'd have to send an email to somebody else and say, hey, it's here. All of that stuff, now we just spec the job, change the status, and a whole bunch of those make busy work all happens, and you get a ping back with the result has happened. And you can only get that level of kind of seamlessness if you understand the process and you've got the tools that will talk to each other to let you do that.
Right. And I know we'll talk a little bit later about sort of how onboarding has changed, sort of as work styles have changed, and obviously remote work has become a bigger piece. I was wondering if you could talk sort of particularly the element about communicating some of these changes in the workflows out to clients. Sort of how does that get communicated to them? How do they respond to that?
We've got a number of different ways of doing that. Things as simple as automated notifications. Those are an interesting one because you can overdo it with those and drive people crazy. So you do have to bear that in mind. One of the good things about all these systems is that the client isn't just on the receiving end of a notification. They're often involved. They are either seeing things live in the project management system or something like WoodWing Studio and Publication Overview. They're actually in the system as well. So depending on the client, we do have different levels of engagement and involvement. Some clients actually use our WoodWing Assets system as their own dam. So they're quite often in the system and it's part of their workday is working with us. So marketing teams within our clients often are quite deeply involved. So we try not to view it as that kind of hands-off ping notifications backwards and forwards, although we can do that, but we try to get a greater depth of involvement with the client. And the benefit of that is, and we'll get into the benefits, is there's a transparency. The client feels like they're more part of the team rather than we're just a bunch of people doing a job and lobbing a result back to them. That's not what we do and not what we want to do. So these systems allow us to involve the client more.
Right. So really extends that feeling of collaboration and that sense of collective work into their work environment as well. Yeah, terrific. Yeah, well, so you mentioned the B word. Obviously, everyone's always looking for how can new ways of working and new technology deliver benefits. We would love to hear kind of some of the lessons learned and some of the benefits that you've realized in optimizing these workflows.
I mean, removing repetitive tasks, and it's an ongoing job. That's the other thing. I think the challenges back there I probably skipped was it's a kind of a project without end that whilst there would be obviously big chunks where you do this, it's always something you've got to keep on top of. So removing double handling, especially things like status and reporting. Previously you're sending emails, you're updating the spreadsheet, you've got all these different ways, yelling across the office, all these manner of ways that you were updating people previously. And they're all repetitive tasks. And again, it's a death by 1,000 cuts. So it's very hard to put an ROI on removing repetitive tasks because how do you quantify saving somebody 5 seconds? But when you're saving 200 people 5 seconds 50 times a day, that's when you start to really get some clear benefits. And a consistent experience. I mean, the interesting thing with medium rare is we have different clients, we have different teams. Historically, different ways of doing things grow over time. So by having a system which makes life easy, we can also enforce, for want of a better term, some consistency across the whole business. And that is even more important in these days where we've got COVID, hopefully getting to the end of that. But those changes aren't going away. I think remote working, I mean, medium rare actually before even the pandemic had a pretty reasonably high rate of remote work with freelancers and people in other time zones and clients in other time zones. But having a consistent experience means that process is simpler. And also when you have staff moving between teams. So you've got somebody like a designer working on one title, then they move to another one for a few weeks and come back. If it's a consistent experience, that retraining and onboarding gets greatly reduced. And our response to clients is faster. Before, where jobs coming in, there was a lot of time and effort on admin just to organize what needed to be done. If you've got that orchestration workflow in place, you just put the raw materials in and a whole host of things happen, which saves time and means you can both respond to client requests and just get the work done faster. Bit of a mouthful, solve communication asynchronicity. But what that means is traditionally, a lot of the time you would find people would wait for somebody else to tell them, like, where's it up to? And then you'd wait for somebody to tell you, or you'd go to do it, and then job one would be ask where it's up to. What we want is asynchronous, so that when you go into the system, you can see where it's up to. Everything has a status, everything has a date, and you know where you are, whether the last person to work on it is sitting next to you or the other side of the world. So that was very important for us. And again, I mentioned briefly before the transparency side, both internally, people know where things are up to, management know where things are up to, so they feel more confident in what staff are doing, because it's not like, oh, well, I think they're in the middle of doing it. You can see. It's not an employee monitoring thing at all. It was never the approach. It's just simply knowing where it is. And also, to varying degrees, we have client transparency as well. So the client feels part of it, and they can see what's going on. So to me, transparency is something that there's only benefits to it. The more you have things locked away, the harder everybody's life gets. So transparency is a massive benefit.
Right. Yeah, no. So, and you alluded to it in the conversation about how this move towards distributed teams, and certainly working with external partners who are not physically co-located, is something that you've always dealt with as a business, but certainly with the pandemic and the impact on how teams work and where work gets done, introduces a whole set of challenges around working with remote teams and client engagements. We talked about a number of these things, but anything more you feel like you'd want to add in, and particularly how content orchestration has helped address some of those challenges?
Culture and process is always a tricky one. You can add it to the documentation. You can say, this is how we do things. It's not the same as sitting in a room together or an office together. So that's been a challenge of the remote side of things. So any system or process that makes that as obvious as possible with clear directions is always going to help, and that people can refer back to. The old saw that nobody reads the instructions, but we, by having the system itself not need instructions, that's the holy grail. You'll never quite get there. The thing is, it is complex. There is a lot of moving parts. You're never going to have a video editing process with no instructions. That's just not something that's going to happen. But and we find that remotely clients aren't always on the same schedule. So when we do things like approvals and reviews remote, they need to be asynchronous. You can't have, review it now. That's not something we say, it is ready to review, and then we get the ping back when it has been reviewed. That's just the way that it has to work these days.
Yeah. Sort of the downside of there never being the end of the workday, meaning, of course, that that people do have different work styles, work expectations, and of course it means that teams need to have ways to be able to to share and communicate and understand status better than they might have in the past.
Exactly, and a confidence in the system that's going to work, because that transparency, and once people are confident the system works, you get that greater level of uptake. And you get the benefits.
Right. Terrific. No, that makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like a number of new expectations on the part of clients, and expectations on differences in expectations on the part of employees. As you think about introducing these new ways of working, are you learning about kind of what they value, and perhaps understanding how that translates back into how you serve clients and how you work and manage and reward employees differently?
Well, exactly. Yes. The pandemic has been kind of a double-edged sword. Fear of the unknown, and really anything that adds uncertainty. There's already enough. We don't want some more uncertainty. So that's been a problem. Remote does tend to draw out implementations. You have to be prepared that you're not going to have that instant back and forth that you do in the office. So, setting meetings, it all generally will probably take a bit longer. And nuances that are missed in Zoom meetings. So sitting in the room, you've got the body language, whether somebody's getting it or not getting it. You don't kind of get that with Zoom, so that can sometimes drag things out a little bit. But having said that, with so much change kind of thrust upon everybody, evacuating the office in March effectively, and some quite significant changes to everyone's life, and a life-threatening virus hanging around the world. Generally, staff and clients have been pretty accommodating, and also in some ways more accommodating, because understand, well, we've got loads of things on and loads of worries, so the fact that you're changing the system, well, we'll give that a go, and we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. So I think that's worked in our favor as well, and people can adjust their priorities. So working from home means often people can maybe carve out an hour or two to learn about the new system, or collaborate on how we're doing this. And again, this comes back to clearly defining the purpose. So you need to define what you're doing and why you're doing it. And then once you've done that, it simplifies a lot of these processes.
Right. So, so if we think about that, that key point about understanding why you're working the way that you're working, and the impact that it can have on the work that you're able to do for clients. I'm also interested to understand, how perhaps working differently, and understanding how the pieces fit together impacts how you think about growing your business. Obviously, as an agency in a market, you are always looking for new ways of engaging, both with the existing clients that you have, as well as finding new ones, and demonstrating the types of things that you can help them do. How do you think about content orchestration as a way to be able to help you grow your business?
Well, I mean, in terms of expectations, clients, have their own pressures. They don't want to understand the idiosyncrasies of your system. Publication Overview in Studio is a good example. It's a great tool that does its job well. And it's one of those ones that doesn't really need instructions, going back to the earlier point. And employees just want to get on with their work, not admin, and demand their flexibility in hours and locations. So in terms of how it looks for going forward, as the slide suggests, this allows us to more rapidly respond. So in terms of new client acquisition, it's easier for us to say yes to things, because we know we don't have to worry about, well, how are we going to do that? How are we going to cope with that? We can pursue that business, and be confident that our systems can handle it. We can expand the type of projects we can deliver for existing clients. I mean, podcasts are a good example of that. We were doing video for a lot of clients. The notion of podcasts came up, and it's a different workflow, but it's not that different to the video process. So we had all of these workflows in place for video. Adapting those to podcasts wasn't a big stretch. And there's another line of business that we now has been quite successful, and we're doing for our clients. And by involving the clients in the process, has led to additional work. So there's a couple of prongs there. First of all, they see our capabilities and what we can do. When they feel more part of the team, they have the confidence in us. So that leads to more opportunities. They say, well, you did this for us, we got this other thing. And, they saw how well we handled it, the initial task. So we've got some more business. So it's really been, only wins in terms of putting these systems in place, and the effort to get those systems right, and the ongoing effort to get those systems right.
Yeah, and in some ways, it really highlights to go back to the word transparency that you had used earlier in our discussion. The fact that you are so transparent, not only in how you work, but how that you really embrace, delivering that visibility and transparency to your clients. Certainly builds trust and encourages them to think of you more collaboratively than they might have otherwise.
Exactly. Yeah, and you can only do that if you've got the systems and the processes behind you to back it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just out of curiosity, we hadn't talked about this sort of previously, but inevitably in any change there are skeptics. Thoughts, skeptics, outside the organization, clients who perhaps didn't embrace this way of working. Has this ever been an issue, or is it really the transparency is transparent to them that this is really the right way to work and help you deliver the results to them?
I mean, you've always got the skeptics, and yes, I mean, you do have this is the way we've always done it kind of mentality. Yeah. What we find is generally we have enough trust to push back gently. sometimes,
Yeah.
and things like, people were used to being emailed PDFs, and then we switched them over to Content Station, but quite often we find once they do it, they realize how much better it is. So you sometimes do need to do that gentle prodding, and there is a balance there. Actually, something I didn't cover earlier around the orchestration is one of the things we do is we have a whole series of automations and integrations where we deliver to clients, and some of that is to clients' other systems and approval systems. They have their own approval systems, their own web CMSs. I mean, we've got 20 different clients and 20 different web CMSs where potentially this content's going to. I would love
only 20. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I mean, that's off the top of my head. There's probably more. I mean, I would love it if there was 20 WordPress installs and we had admin access, but that's not the way the world works. So what we have to do is then, for each of those clients, tune that delivery to anywhere ranging from, yes, we control it, through to, here's the content, you have to do your thing now. So, and that is something that often the skeptics, you kind of have to do it to prove it. And a benefit of these orchestrating the content this way is you can, because we've got the frameworks in place, you can put the time in to whip up a quick automation or a quick example of these type of things and demonstrate to the client. So it doesn't have to be hypothetical. You can say, well, here's the content, but here it is if we fired you these images, JSON, HTML file, whatever, PDF, whatever it may be, to this location. And we've half built it already. So is that the type of thing that's going to work? And generally, people are pretty impressed when you can do that kind of stuff pretty quickly. So again, the systems have given us the confidence that we can kind of make those promises and deliver on them.
Right. And I would imagine that for clients that have worked with you, over the years, they begin to understand that you can be relied on not only to produce beautiful and compelling creative work, but that also that there's an underlying process that allows it to be done efficiently in that transparent way. So they have confidence in your ability to help them change and help them work through new ways of working.
Exactly. And actually a growing area of the business is we're doing some strategy around this type of work for the clients. So their own workflows and their own processes, they've seen how effective we've been at it and asking our opinion and our assistance in some cases to how they can improve their own processes internally around, especially the creative side of things.
Interesting. Yeah, because I know obviously always the tension in a marketing organization about sort of what to do in-house and where to bring in expertise from outside. It sounds as if there's benefits in working with you in both aspects. Not only are you able to produce things of great quality efficiently, and they can get that quickly and achieve their goals, but that they can also learn internally how to be better at what they do.
Exactly.
You're able to deliver both of those benefits.
These kind of big brand kind of marketing departments don't have IT or business consulting type resources, generally speaking, and often they're not the highest priority in any given business. So where we provide assistance has been valuable to them, I think.
Terrific. So I think we framed today's discussion around optimizing the creative workflow, and you've done a wonderful job of sharing so many. Both bringing us along in your process of how you've learned how to do so many of these things better, but also communicating how these changes have helped you deliver higher quality work that satisfies clients and helps you grow your business, but also how this allows you to sort of transform the way that you work with your clients, and so orchestrating in a sense a new way of working and new relationships that you have with your clients.
Exactly.
Yeah. Terrific. Well, Owen, it's always such a pleasure to learn from you, and I hope that our audience today also got as much out of today's conversation as I know I did. Obviously, we hope that this is just the beginning of more ways that we can share all of your experiences with this audience. For those who are interested in learning more about WoodWing and the solutions that we offer and the work that we do with agencies like you, please do visit woodwing.com. And specifically, we have a brand new ebook in our Learning Center about how agencies can survive and thrive with content orchestration. And that's available at woodwing.com/learning center, the URL right on your screen. So Owen, thank you so much for your time. As I said, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
We look forward to continuing to learn from you and support you as you grow and continue to add value to your clients. And so thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Terrific. Thank you all for joining us today, and we wish you a pleasant day.